And I'd like to share a story of an encounter I had with a fortune teller. When I use the phrase, vibrant living is empowering people's spirit, soul, and body, and also the program that I have designed, um, Life by Design, Not by Default, which helps people to grow in spiritual intelligence. Through all of that, I sometimes encounter people that are fortune tellers and people who say they're witches or psychics and all kinds of labels that people put on themselves. So, since I had this encounter, I wanted to share my thoughts about this with you. Now, as I was encountering her, I was at a fair and she was present at the fair, and we made eye contact and smiled at each other. And she offered, "May I read your fortune?" And she named a dollar amount. I smiled politely and shook my head no and said, "No, thank you." I replied, "I wouldn't believe what you had to say anyway." And she countered, "Well, what if I told you something you could believe?" Again, I politely declined and said, "No, thank you. I have a question for you, though." And she said, "Okay." I said, "Why would I want to hear direct from?" And I smiled, politely declined, and said, "No, thank you. I wouldn't believe what you had to say anyway." And she countered, "What if I were to tell you something you could believe?" Again, I politely declined and said, "No, thank you. But I have a question for you. Why, when I have learned how to hear from God directly, why would I need you as an intermediary?" And she didn't really know what to reply to that. And as I walked away, and in the last months, when I have been encountering these different labels people use, I began to ponder, what is the draw that people have to card readings and psychics? I believe it's because people seek an encounter with the supernatural. They desire to know God, to understand what's bigger than us. We were created in the image of God, and there is a desire to know God. And we begin to look in places that are counterfeit for a counterfeit from the way that God intended for us to be. The other thing fortune tellers do is it messes with our expectations. I didn't trust this fortune teller to hear from the spirit for me. But it does also seem that it's much easier for us to believe bad things rather than good. And these types of situations raises doubts and unnecessary concerns. As human beings, we are wired to weigh the bad news twice as heavily as the good news. When I have learned how to hear directly from God, and also with my Life by Design program to be a creator of my life, it isn't just whatever happens, happens, that I am actually co partnering in my life to create my life. I am not at the whim of life circumstances. So it is possible to hear from God directly to your heart, and it changes absolutely everything. And learning how to increase your spiritual intelligence and learn how to create the life you love on purpose, and instead of looking outside to have people tell you what is going to happen in your life. Which would you rather have? Would you like to be at the whim of whatever person is giving you a reading and that you're seeking outside sources when God can speak directly to your heart and you can co-partner with the laws of the universe that God put into place to create a life full of abundance, full of good things, whatever that means for you. So if this touches your heart, I would love to share more about how this is possible. So you can text me and then be able to receive more information.